So in this tutorial, we'll talk about singleton class. Now the singleton class, a class which allows only one instance. That means you can instantiate that class only once. Now there are a number of occasions when you need this type of feature. So in order to implement a singleton class, what we need is we need a class first. We'll name this class as A. Now in order to create object of, let's say we have some features here. Let's say we have public void show. So I have a method here called a show, and this show prints, let me do one thing. Let's say I have a variable I first, and I would just want to print the value of I here. So we'll say system.out.println. So let's say it is println, and in this println, let me print the value of I by specifying a string. So I say in show. Okay, it's in show plus I, so that it will print the value of I. Now, in order to call that show, what we need is we need object of A. So we'll say A obj equal to new A. Now this is what we create object, object using new keyword, but we can create multiple objects, right? We can create object A obj, we can create A obj1, but let's say we are starting only with one object. We'll say obj I, first let's assign the value, we'll say 5, and let's call the show function. So if I say obj.show, now if I run this code, let me say run. Now if I click on run, so you can see the output is in show 5, right? But now what if I create one more object? Again, we don't want to create one more object, or that's not the main intention. But just to demonstrate, let me create one more object. We'll say obj1 equal to new A, and here what we'll do is we'll say obj1.I is equal to 6 and obj1.show. Now since I'm printing 2 times, it will call show 2 times from 2 different objects, right? So again, if I run this code, the output is in show 5 and in show 6. But let's say I want to create that object only once, so that I will call show, and every time I call show, it should print the same value, which is 5. Now in order to do that, we need to restrict anyone from creating the object by itself. Now what I mean by that is we should not be allowed to create more than one object. Now if you don't allow your user to create more than one object, that means your class is singleton class. So let's see the steps to implement singleton class. Now what are the steps? The first step is, see, whenever I talk about this new A here, this is a constructor, right? So what we can do is we can say, so by default we have something called as A here, okay, and in this A we can print a statement like system dot, or we can print something. So whenever I create this object, it will call the constructor. It's because this constructor is public. But what if I make this constructor as private? Now if you can observe, if you make a constructor private, there is an error here which says a constructor is not visible. That means we will not be allowed to create an object. So somewhere in singleton class we have to use private constructor. Now what exactly it's implement, that we'll see in the second part.